Hey guys, want to talk to you about the benefit of just seeking God, following God's word, and seeing God's blessings. Even somebody as wicked as Joram learned that lesson, and we can learn it too. Listen in.
Welcome to Everyday Truth with Kurt Skelly. We believe the Bible is true and relevant to everyone, everywhere, every day. If today's conversation is a help to you, take a moment to leave a review or share it with a friend. Thanks for listening. Now, let's join Kurt for today's episode.
Hey friends, welcome back. Have a postcard here from our friend Doug Binkley. Doug is the most faithful postcard provider on Everyday Truth. And Doug was riding his motorcycle. I've been here many times by the New River Gorge National Park. Just an amazing place. The picture doesn't do it justice, but the New River Gorge Bridge is just an amazing spot. So Doug, thanks for thinking about us and letting us know where you are. And thanks for listening to the podcast. And all of you, thank you for listening to the podcast. Means a lot. We are in 2 Kings chapter 6, as you well know, talking about Elisha and his ministry. I loved the story from the car yesterday about how God had showed the servant of Elisha that the problems that were surrounding them were actually surrounded by God. When God surrounds your problems would be a good way to look at that story. And we are still in that story in verse number 18, because the Bible says, and when they came down to him, so God's opened the eyes of the servant. When they came down to him, Elisha prayed unto the Lord and said, smite this people, I pray thee, with blindness. And he smote them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. So Elisha asks the Lord to strike the entire Syrian army with blindness. This is such an interesting story because moments ago, the servant was saying, what in the world are we going to do? We are surrounded by the enemy. And now God has demonstrated that he has surrounded the enemy. And now the enemy is completely blind. Well, an army can't be effective when it's blind. And it says in verse 19, and Elisha said unto them, this is not the way, neither is this the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom you seek. But he led them to Samaria. This may be among the funniest stories in the Bible. Did you hear what just happened? What just happened was God struck the entire army with blindness. Elisha says, hey, you're in the wrong place. I know who you're looking for. Of course, they're looking for Elisha. Elisha says, and I know exactly where he is. So just follow me and I will show you where he is. So I don't know how Elisha led an army of blind people from Dothan to Samaria, the city of Samaria, miles away. I don't know if he used one of those daycare ropes or a bunch of seeing eye dogs, or I don't know, but this is just hilarious to me. And it says in verse 20, and it came to pass when they were come into Samaria that Elisha said, Lord, open the eyes of these men that they may see. And the Lord opened their eyes and they saw, and behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. So he leads the entire Syrian army on this quest. They're blind. He leads them into the city of Samaria, which is the capital city of the northern kingdom. And now they're in the city. So they are surrounded now by the army of Israel. And then he says, God opened their eyes. And of course, they are in essence ambushed. So the army that wanted to ambush Elisha has now been ambushed themselves by Elisha, because he's led them to the middle of the city of Samaria. Now think about the king of Israel, Joram. he has not become a follower of Jehovah, even though God over and over again has blessed him. So what did God do? God blessed him back with the situation with the ditches. We talked about that, and how God delivered him when he made a dumb choice. And then we saw a couple episodes ago that God has been bailing out Joram by telling Joram through Elisha what the plans of the Syrian army have been. So there is that. And now a third time, God delivers the entire army right into his lap here in 2 Kings chapter 6. So God has been good. God has been good. God has been good. God has done miracle. He's done miracle. He's done miracle. You would think that all of this would be the best incentive in the world just to follow God. I mean, Joram, God has been good to you. God has demonstrated his miraculous power to you. You have more than enough reason to follow God for the rest of your life. That's why it's so disappointing to know what happens in the rest of the chapter, because we will see that when we don't listen to God's message, Joram didn't listen. When we don't listen to God's goodness, Joram didn't listen. God has other ways to arrest our attention, and unfortunately, Joram didn't even listen to that. So look at verse 21. And the king of Israel said unto Elisha when he saw them, my father, shall I smite them? Shall I smite them? I mean, he's so giddy with excitement that this entire army, or at least this company in the army, has been now captured, that he says to Elisha, should I just execute them right now? Should I just destroy this army right now? I mean, he is just giddy with excitement. And it says in verse 22, and he answered, thou shalt not smite them. Wouldest thou smite those whom thou hast taken captive with thy sword and with thy bow? If you had prisoners of war, you wouldn't kill them. I mean, that's just normal war practice. If prisoners of war are taken, you don't execute them. You might imprison them, but you might subjugate them, enslave them, but you're not going to execute them. Set bread and water before them that they may eat and drink and go to their master. Very interesting. So what Elisha says to Joram is, no, don't kill them, but be gracious to them. Give them food, give them water, send them back home. And what that will, in essence, do is create peace between these nations. Because one thing we know from the last couple of weeks of episodes is that Syria and Israel have been in this battle, this war. And sometimes Israel has been the one with the upper hand, and sometimes Syria has been the one with the upper hand. At this point, Syria is. And God is saying to Joram, okay, show some mercy to these captured soldiers and just see how that works out. And it says in verse 23, and he prepared, this is Joram, great provision for them. And when they had eaten and drunk, he sent them away, and they went to their master. So the bands of Syria came no more into the land of Israel, because that's what's been happening. Syria has been attacking Israel in these skirmish wars for the past few years. They've been arbitrarily just raiding Israel and attacking these border towns. That's where the little maid was captured back in chapter 5, the one that was employed there at Naaman's house. So all of that ends. Why? Not because Joram is fighting, but because Joram is being gracious. And that might be a good piece of advice for somebody that's dealing with a nettlesome enemy in your own life. You know, maybe you're dealing with a situation, an individual in your own life where it just seems like it's always just back and forth, and they're always trying to get you, and it never stops. And sometimes when you get an upper hand in a situation, that this is what God did for Joram. He gave him the upper hand. This wasn't Joram's smart. This wasn't his intelligence. This wasn't his military prowess. No, God had just delivered the entire army, or at least this subsection of the army, however many there were, to his under his control in Samaria. And God said, now be gracious to them. And somebody has to turn the other cheek. Somebody has to end this skirmishing by being the bigger person. And Joram, you be that person. I find context for this chapter in Romans chapter 12, where it says, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing, thou shalt heap coals of fire upon his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. And that's what Joram is doing here, following the Lord. So this is actually a good little episode in Joram's life where he asks counsel of the man of God. He takes counsel from the man of God. He does what he is told to do, and it works out. It's not rocket science. As we seek God, as we follow God, as we honor God, we see God's blessings. And that's kind of the subtext of this entire story, verses 18 through 23. It's one shining moment in Joram's life that should have informed his future choices, that should have solidified a bona fide relationship with God, and yet it does not. And that's the sad thing. So I think what I'm going to do today, I think I'm going to leave you right there. I know we have plenty of time left, but not enough time to cover the rest of the chapter. So I'm going to end our episode today in verse number 23, give you a couple minutes back today, and then we'll come into the end of the chapter tomorrow and see just how Joram can't sustain this kind of obedience to and relationship with God. Until then, I hope you have a great day in the Lord. God bless you, my friends.